Hey, how y'all doing? I know I usually talk about WWE or AEW or something like that on this channel, but sometimes I feel like digging in my nerd bag and watching, other pro wrestling. And I watched this documentary on the Great Sasuke. I'm gonna post it it's posted on YouTube. I'm gonna put it in the description. So if you interested in watching it, you can go watch it. But this is a very, very interesting documentary. It tells the story of the Great Sasuke. It doesn't use his real name, which is I actually like. I actually like that it didn't use his real name, but it talks about him up to this up to the point of his 20th anniversary match or 20th anniversary show. No, actually it goes a little bit beyond that. From 1992 to like 19 till 2011 or something about that. And it just shows a lot of these different little details about what kind of person he is and what kind of things he's been getting into and stuff like that. And I just want to kind of go through it because I thought the documentary was fantastic, and I just wanted to go through it a little bit. So we find that when we come into this documentary, the Great Sasuke is 41 years old, so this is 2011 or something like that, and he's beat to shit. Like he's really just has almost nothing left. It's really difficult to watch him work out. Where he could lift something once or twice, and then that's kind of it. He's got these gnarly cuts and scars all over his body, and he now, if you've seen the Great Sasuke, or if you're familiar with him, especially when his very, very short run in WWF, he used to wrestle, in a full black uniform. But at this point, he's wrestling in just his trunks and his mask, and you can just see these scars, and it's really ugly. It's really ugly. So he says that he was sent to Mexico in 1992 to train. So, and this is the excursion. This is usually what Japanese wrestlers do. They go on excursion. He was sent to Mexico, where he met his wife, and he met his wife in Mexico. And he said when he was 13, he heard like a voice from God that told him to be a pro wrestler. And he said he just followed it. He just followed the voice. As far as what the voice told him to do, he just followed it. And the crazy thing is, he said he heard it again in 1993. And I don't know how old he was when he was not in 1993. I wasn't sure, but he said he came home from excursion, and he said he heard the voice of God again tell him that he needs to be wrestling in his hometown, not abroad. And so he says that what he does is he starts Michinoku Pro. Michinoku Pro Wrestling is this independent promotion in Japan that is started by the Great Sasuke and with some help from Taka Michinoku. And he said he wanted to energize his little town, with wrestling, because wrestling is in Japan. From what the documentary, what they says is that it's usually in the big cities, usually Tokyo. So for the first time, somebody is really trying to do something in a town that is not a big city. And he also says that his mission statement is to bring lucha libre style wrestling to Japan. And said for a long time this was an interesting thing, but it was wildly unsuccessful. He says essentially that although they never missed any payments to the performers, they had accrued a lot of debt. And I checked. I usually don't do a lot of extra research when I'm just watching documentaries. But I looked, and Michinoku Pro is actually still around. I didn't know that, but I didn't check to see if the Great Sasuke was still wrestling in 2020 or not. But the company had accrued a lot of debt. Now, the real reason I wanted to talk about this documentary is the amount of I hear people bitching all the time about wrestling, but you had this guy, the Great Sasuke. He's out soliciting and advertising this 20th anniversary show. He's calling people on the phone personally. The 20th anniversary show is coming up. He's out selling tickets. He's out putting up posters. He's out riding around with his megaphone, like the Great Sasuke is coming to town. Like it was in Japanese, but he was out there doing the footwork. It was really inspiring, because this guy really believed in what he was doing, and he could have been making a lot more money working somewhere else, but he was really doing what he loved in the town that he loved. So it didn't matter to him that he didn't make a lot of money. He just wanted to do this so badly. He just wanted to make this work, and he was afraid that the event was going to fail and it wasn't going to have a big audience. and it was sad. It was legit sad. Like they still had a decent turnout. It wasn't the turnout that he wanted, but it was better than it probably would have been if he had not been out there hoofing it. So when you hear people complain about having to do anything extra, just remember, man, there's people out here who they want it bad enough, and this dude wanted it. And he, when you out there and you the star of the show, he was working the main event of this show. So usually, and he said it's in kind of in the early part of the documentary, because of his age, he usually tries to work either the opening match or some place in the middle. But he doesn't really like working in the main events anymore. But for the 20th anniversary show, he was going to work in the main event because he really wanted to do it. And he was out there hoofing it. He was really trying to make it work. And then after the match, he gave it. You know, it looked like the match might have been a pretty good length. I didn't see the match, obviously, but they showed, clips of it. It looked pretty brutal, very physical in the Japanese way of wrestling. And after the match, he was exhausted. This 41-year-old guy could barely walk. There were certain parts after this match where he was in a wheelchair. He couldn't lift. He was trying to work out, but he had torn like a rotator cuff or something like that, and he couldn't, lift his arms. And he couldn't do a chin up. It was absolutely sad. And this is like the amount of effort that he put in and destroyed his body, because he loves not just the business, but and this is kind of where you also get the sort of offensive Vince Russo is just wrestling talk, because this guy is passionate. Like, he's super passionate, and he's not the only one. There's a lot of wrestlers out there that are super passionate like this. But they also showed a lot about his family, and his family was very interesting because his wife is Mexican, like I mentioned that earlier. But his children seemed to be very distant from his family. First starters, his house was very humble. He had a very humble home. It was really cozy. It looked like something out of like Roseanne, where like everybody sat around the table in this little ass kitchen. And it seemed like you would think that the guy who was famous would be richer than that, but he didn't have a lot. He didn't have a lot. He was just just passionate about what he was doing. And his family said, his daughter said that they have no privacy because the Great Sasuke is famous, that they can't go anywhere. But this doesn't help that he also wears his mask everywhere, because he respects lucha libre culture due to his training in Mexico. He wears his mask everywhere. So he says, like, his daughter says they have no privacy. His wife says that he pretty much just wanders off and does his own thing. They don't travel together anymore as a family. His family doesn't come watch him wrestle anymore because the wounds and the injuries and stuff is just too much for them to take. So they don't even go anymore. And this was in 2011. So he has a genuine love for his hometown, and it was really interesting that he had ran for the governorship. Please believe I don't understand Japanese political structure, but it sounded like he ran for governor of the Iwate province or something like that, and he lost. This was in 2007, and he ran for assembly right after the hurricane. He was really interested in. He's a really community-driven guy. That's why he started Michinoku Pro where he was. And then he also ran for, to be a politician. They showed a lot of clips of him on the campaign trail in the documentary where he's out with his megaphone talking to people, waving and driving around and stuff. And they also showed that he lost twice, and he was being mocked for wearing a mask in public. This is really strange, right? That despite the fact that he's really famous, people just don't like the fact that he wears a mask, and they wouldn't vote for him. So he lost. Both times he lost the governorship, and he lost when he ran for assembly. Both times because he was a weirdo in a mask, essentially, even though everybody knew who he was. So in the documentary, he talks about how the smiles motivate him. The smiling fans and the audience, they really motivate him to do what he was doing. And of course, like the wrestler documentary, you have the rise and the fall. So they shows you with the Great Sasuke in the full arena, with all of these titles and him doing all these cool moves, and now you flash forward 20 some odd years, and he's wrestling in gyms. He's wrestling in the middle of a mall with and there's still decent, there's still people there, but it's probably 100 at the most. And he talks about it like, hey, we used to fill arenas, but now we're lucky to have this show in the middle of the mall. But what really kind of stuck with me. And another thing that made, probably the second best thing that made me start wanting to do this video, is that there's a scene where he's going to do, I guess, a show at a school. So he goes to this school and he's outside working out, and he's trying to work out, but he's with these kids, and these kids are boys, and they're out there taking this great interest in all of these gnarly scars that he has, that he's, trying to work out and stuff. And these kids come out like, ooh, ah, and he's asked if he had gotten stabbed in the front part of his chest, where there's this like this gigantic boil or whatever. And he says yes. And the boy says, what happened? And he says that he was stabbed with a fluorescent light tube. And I just like, holy fucking shit. Like, and the boy says, like, who did it? And he was like, my opponent. And I'm like, well, holy fucking shit. Like, are you serious? Like, you got stabbed with a fluorescent light tube, and it left like a legitimate permanent mark on his chest. Like, it was horrible. Like, there's all types of cuts and stuff all over his back. You can't see his face because he wears it seems to have an everyday mask and a wrestling mask, which is really strange. Like, you see him switch masks, and he does it almost like he's been training to do it forever. And he never goes anywhere without his mask on. But it was when you see the show that he does in the gym, where he's letting the kids tumble in the ring, he's showing them how to do roll and take bumps and stuff like that. And it's really, it's sweet. It's legitimately heartwarming. And he says, and this is all of the kids scene, the scene where you see him helping the kids learn how to wrestle and roll and stuff. He sits back afterwards and he says that, the ring is where I belong. I don't need to do politics anymore. And it seems to me like it just like the voice hit him again. Like, the voice hit him at 13, told him to be a pro wrestler. The voice hit him again and told him to start a wrestling company in his hometown. And it seemed like the voice kind of hit him again and was like, why are you trying to be a politician? You can do a lot just as a wrestler. And he just said, I don't need to do it anymore. I don't need to do politics anymore. The ring is where I belong. And I thought that was absolutely fucking beautiful. So you guys should watch this documentary. It's really good. It made me want to watch more of the Great Sasuke. Like, I watch a match every now and again, but now I'm probably going to hunt, as much of this stuff as I can, because I legitimately like this guy now. So I'm going to post the documentary in the description if you guys want to watch it. Like this video, please like this video, share it, subscribe, and have a good day.